Alright, Assalamualaikum everybody. I hope you all are doing well. Am I clearly audible? Kindly, if any one of you could let me know in the chat box. Alright, Assalamualaikum everybody. I hope you all are kindly. I will bring it up here too. Yeah. Okay, let's start off with the class content for today. Walaikum assalam, walaikum assalam. Apologies for the slight delay. I don't know, there was some issue with the internet, due to which, even though I was here at like 3:58, I was unable to start off because there was some delay. So, if anybody of you, if the internet goes off at any point or something like that happens, kindly do let me know. Mustafa, kindly text me on WhatsApp the moment anything goes off. Okay. So we're gonna do the chapter number 3 and chapter number 4 topicals today, inshallah. We're gonna do some difficult questions. We're gonna do those. We're gonna do every type of question, inshallah. Say walaikum assalam, everybody. So you guys can share the link with your friends. We're just starting off in like a minute or two. Just want to give a shout out to Shayan Asjid for sending the paper number 1 topicals. It's really good. I can share those later on too. Perhaps I'm going to share it with you all too. He sort of divided everything into proper parts, right? So I'm going to do those first, and then after that, if anybody else had sent some other questions, we can do those too. But yeah, this is some really crazy stuff, Shayan. That's because it has been compiled really well. So I'm going to just start off with those, inshallah. Sahi, and then we can move on ahead with the questions. So yeah, let me just open it up and so let me load up the stuff and then start karte. So where is it? Input output. Yep. Right, you would be able to see the screen at this point. So we're going to start off immediately directly into the content. We're going to do a few questions from chapter number 3.2 because we did not get a lot of time to practice 3.2 yesterday. So we're going to do that first. We are done with chapter number 3.1. 3.1 was done in the last class. So we're going to do 3.3, 3.3, 3.2, 3.3 and 3.4. My plan is to do like 3 questions each. So doing 3 would be more than enough. Okay, so without wasting any further time, Bismillah Rahman Rahim, let's start off with our today's class. So this question is from the May-June 2025 paper number 12. And it says that the programmer wants to print a list of all her books on paper. Identify a suitable type of printer that she could use to print this list. Now, this is a really good question because a lot of times people do not understand when do we need to use the LaserJet printer and when do we need to make use of the laser printer. Now, a small hint up here is that whenever you hear the word that you need to print a lot of stuff, okay, whenever you hear the word a lot of stuff, in that case you need to basically go with laser printer. Okay, so I would basically recommend going with laser printer. So you should go with laser printer, and whenever they ask you for a high quality or they want you for some color sort of prints, in that case it's better to go with inkjet. Now if you open up the marking scheme for this paper, you're going to find the answer for both laser and inkjet. However, my recommendation would be laser. Why? Because according to the content taught to all of us, even in my notes, you use laser when you have to print a lot of stuff, and the question clearly mentioned that she's trying to print all her books. So all her books basically means that there are going to be a lot of material to be printed out, which means that laser printer is way more recommended. Perfect. Moving on, the second question is that a clothes store has a ticket system to allow customers to speak to a personal shopper, and that the ticket displays a ticket number in hexadecimal, for example 11B. The ticket system has an output device that creates a paper ticket. Identify an output device to produce the paper ticket. Now that's pretty much very straightforward. It has to be a printer which converts any computer command or computer file into some paper form output, right? Moving on, question number 3 says that these are like some easy questions, so I'm just rushing through them. Okay, sir, but we aren't printing a lot. It's just a page. Who said it's a page? It says that you're printing all her books on paper, which means that if you have 10 PDFs each of 100 files, you're printing 1000 pages, but you're printing all of them on paper. So yes, you do have a lot of what do we call it, printing happening. So question 4 says that a student has a smartwatch. The smartwatch has built-in input and output device. Identify 2 devices that can be built into the smartwatch. Definitely just consider what can an Apple Watch have. So we might have a microphone saying Siri, what's the time right now? So you see, right? So one could be a microphone, and of course the best one for a smartwatch is that you always have to navigate it, right? So when you have to navigate it, you make use of something known as touch screen. So don't write monitor there. Okay, there's a difference between touch screen, normal screens and monitors. At first glance, it may seem that touch screen, monitor, or any type of display, they seem to be the same thing, but they aren't the same thing. There is a big difference in all of them. Touchscreen is the one which allows you to also have the digital input of touch. Okay, monitor is only for output, and similarly display is only for output. So you only need to write touch, monitor, or if like among display, if you want to write about LED, LCD, stuff like that. Okay, so yeah, therefore the answer is going to be touchscreen. Apart from that, you can also talk about buttons, maybe digital camera, a sensor. All of those are perfectly fine too. As for output, the best sort of an output you can have at this point is like a speaker, right? You might have some speaker from which the AI assistant might be talking to you. So you can say that for part B, it could be a speaker. And yes, the way Mustafa mentioned, you can also say that the second option could have the answer as a screen. So you can also write screen up here. Why? Because screen, there might be a specific place where you're only able to display stuff. Okay, so maybe that's a screen. So if you have a screen which does not allow you to input stuff, but it does output something, that is perfectly a good output device at this point. Okay, moving on, question 5 says that a student has a portable tablet computer. Identify two input devices that could be built into the portable tablet computer. Again, pretty much similar question, so I'm gonna leave it. Okay, we won't be doing the repeated questions, but yeah, let's try to do this one question. So it says that a train station has a ticket inspector who checks each customer's ticket before they are allowed to get on the train, and that the train system will allow the tickets to be automatically checked. Okay, identify two suitable inputs that can be used to automatically read the tickets. Now, what are those two input devices that can allow you to automatically check for a ticket? That's such a good question, right? So the answer to this is pretty much straightforward. You could have a barcode scanner, you could have a QR code scanner, you could have a digital camera. So you could write any of those and you would be good to go. So you can write barcode scanner, or you can write a QR code scanner. So the last 2 years questions have gotten easy just because the working part has been removed. So all these questions are from 2023 onwards papers, right? Now you will not see any question asking you how does a printer work, how does a QR sensor work, how does a barcode works, right? Those questions have been removed. Tata bye bye. Say, sir, can we get this file so we can do the question saath? Of course you can get it. Let me send it to you all. Here you go. So I'm going to send it in the chat box. You guys can do it alongside me if you want. Topical. Yeah, so just open it up and you're going to find the topic. We're currently doing 3.2. Okay. Infrared 2 for passive. No, infrared would be wrong up here. Why? Because the question does not ask you to detect something. It is sort of something which is going to check whether it is the proper ticket or not. So it's like you might have a barcode on your ticket which might be scanned. You might have a QR code on your ticket which might be scanned. So anything of that nature which can ensure that yes, it is the proper ticket. Okay. Moving on, question 8 says that a manufacturing company uses an automated system in its manufacturing process. The system uses a flow sensor. What does a flow sensor do? We did this yesterday in the class too, that your flow sensor is basically that specific type of sensor which measures how much of a specific substance is left in something. So like maybe I might say like there I want to measure the amount of liquid in something. So if I want to measure the amount of liquid in something, how will I do that? It's going to be done thanks to my flow sensor. So it's basically the amount of liquid being monitored or like moving through an environment. So you can say what a measure sensor, it amount of liquid, what do we call it, moving through an environment kar do, moving through the system kar do, moving through the environment, or if you might want to write सर ये तो जेनेमेटिक्स है, ये तो मुझे नहीं पता. By the way, Shayan did send it to me, so I'm not sure whether he is zenematics wale ya nahi, but yeah, if it is of zenematics, shout out to Sir Zain, shout out to Sir Khwaja, goats, of course goats. I met Sir Zain. Sir Zain is the absolute goated person out there. He's the man who inspired me. He's the man who have inspired everybody else. He's the man who made me get those A stars in maths. He's the man who made me ace those papers. So सही है ना. ये तो सर जैन किंग है. सर व्हेन डिड यू स्टार्ट योर ओ लेवल्स एंड ए लेवल? यार भाई आप लोग पता नहीं क्या एज के पीछे पड़ गए हो. माशाल्लाह माशाल्लाह. सो आई कंप्लीटेड माय ओ लेवल्स व्हेन आई वाज अराउंड 17. ओके. And then I started my A levels, and my A levels, when I was about to end A levels, I was 19. Okay, so like when I started university in August 25, I was 18, and then in September 25 I turned 19. So inshallah I'm going to turn 20 in September 26. So that is almost everybody is of the same age. To be honest, it's not that varying. I do have a lot of friends of mine who are of 19 years old. So moving on, question 9 now says output devices are used to output data. Circle 3 devices. Easy question, so I'm going to skip it. Okay, this is again an easy question, but let's do it. So actuator is an output device, register is a storage device, sensor is an input device, mouse is an input device, and DVD is a storage device. 5 by 5. Okay, yep, I'm 19. Moving on, question number 4 says, now this is a good question. Now that's the type of question which I say that could be tested, but even this question is sort of something which is only going to be tested because it's asking you why should you go with a specific touch type. Okay, so it's asking you for the reasoning. So it says that a company needs to decide which touchscreen technology to use. State one type of touchscreen technology and why. So if you open up my notes, I've explained this pretty well, that why should one go with a specific type of touchscreen. So you could say that, okay, I might want to go with the capacitive touchscreen. Why? Because it has good visibility, it supports multi-touch, it has more longevity, it has a faster response time. So all those points are perfectly fine. So I can say capacitive, and then you're going to say exactly. So it supports multi-touch, it has a faster response time, and of course similarly, if you guys want to mention, you can also talk about resistive, you can also talk about infrared. Okay, those are also perfectly fine. You can say it has a good what do we call it, it has a good visibility in sunlight. So because the question did not specify any condition, it's up to you, whatever you might want to go with, but you need to give the proper reasoning. Now these are the points which you need to memorize. Okay, so people were asking, sir, kya yaad karna hai? So do I need to learn how capacitive works? No, you need to just learn why should one go with capacitive touchscreen. Okay, so yeah, why not resistive? You can also write resistive. Okay, so you can also write resistive. It's up to you. The question just asks for anyone. So you can write capacitive, you can write resistive, you can even write infrared, whatever you want to go with. But uske likh dena jiske aapko points pata ho. Sahi hai? Sir, where can I find this topical question PDF? I've linked it. I'm not sure if my student made it or if it was by Sir Zain. If whoever it was, shout out to them. This isn't my topical, but yeah, I'm using it. Sahi hai? So sir, can you share your annotated diagrams PDF? Go to my website, go to the notes section, and on my notes section, you're going to find the annotated diagram PDF. Okay. Sir, are advantages and disadvantages? Yes, they are. Ye sort of advantage you now. This question tests the advantages of capacitive touchscreen. So yes, it is being tested. Okay. Moving on, let's try to look onto this question. Describe how the QR code is processed. Okay, so the thing is, this question is no longer in syllabus. So this is not in syllabus. Why? Because this question is now asking you basically for your working. So this question is not in syllabus, and we can clearly see that this question is from October-November 2022. So this was from the pre-2023 papers, hence this is out of syllabus. So these were all the questions which you should solve, and you should have an idea. That's almost all the type of questions you're going to get from chapter number 3.2. And let's now move on to the next questions, which will be from chapter number 3.3. So we're going to just do the questions from 2023. We're going to ignore everything which is beforehand. So you see all these questions go up to 2024 and 2020. So yeah. Sir, I didn't personal media, I looked for it in a group. Yeah, exactly, I get it. Easy. So I guess these are from, I don't know, Sir Zanske. So if it's of Sir Zan, shout out to him. Shout out to Sir Khwaja. By the way, I met him. You know, I've met Sir Khwaja. Sir Zan came to LUMS and Sir Khwaja was alongside him, and I was like, oh yeah, we teach computer science. And then yeah, crazy scene. He might not even know me, but Good stuff. And back then when I met him, Code Catalyst was literally being started. So yeah. So I mean, 047 is as your exam. Yeah, we are doing 0478. These questions 0478 and 2210 के same है. So if you open up the same exam paper for 0478, the same exam question will be tested. So don't worry. So yeah, you are good to go. Okay, so sir, did you complete? Of course, man. I'm currently in university. I'm a first year student at LUMS. So I'm done with my A levels. I had math, physics, CS, and economics. Alright, let's start off with this question now. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Oh, did I paste the same thing again? I guess I did. My bad. Paste the same document again. Let's go back. Where's the document? Import. And now we're going to do data storage part. Alright, let's start off with this. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So this is chapter number 3.3 now, which is a really important topic. Okay, and it says a computer stores data temporarily in RAM. RAM is an example of primary storage. Give another example of primary storage. So the other example of primary storage which we have in our syllabus is ROM. And then it says give one reason why data is only stored temporarily. So it's basically stored temporarily because it's a volatile storage, and you can say that the data needs to be consecutively changed and maybe consecutively updated. So you can also talk about those. Okay, so I can say that it is a volatile storage. Writing this will get you 1 mark, by the way. Volatile storage. And then you can write the second point if anybody wants to write it, but however you don't need to write it up here. But if let's say the question asked for 2 points, so the second correct point up here would be that the data needs to be consecutively changed. Needs to be consecutively changed. So I can see that almost all of you in the chat box spammed the word ROM for the first one, which is 100% correct. But just so that you all are aware, you can also write cache memory up here. So if you also write cache, that's also a type of primary storage. Okay, a lot of people don't know about this, but yeah. What's my name of my website? So it's Code Catalyst. I can send the link. I'm gonna change the URL to very soon to Code Catalyst CC. So हो जाएगा, फिर आपको भी समझ आ जाएगी, easily accessible होगा. But I've sent the link. Okay. Sir, when you start the chapter 4, can you also give a quick overview of the topic? That's going to be a bit difficult because we don't have a lot of time. Sir, will we do chapter 5? Yep, we're going to do chapter 5 tomorrow, inshallah. Chapter 5 and chapter number 6. Don't worry, both of them. So we'll be done with the entire course topicals, okay? For sure, everything will be covered up. Don't worry at all. Let's move on. Question number 7 says, sir, were you good in chem? Yes, I was really good in chem. In all the IGCSE chemistry papers I solved for my own practice, I was consecutively getting 72 plus out of 80 in my theory papers. Mashallah, mashallah, mashallah. I don't know whether it was 72 marks, huh? And if I'm not wrong, in my official paper, I guess I got like 78 out of 80. And so yeah, low-key fun. But I did not have A-level chemistry. Sir, do I do the topical or theory studying? Then depends upon you. If you know the concepts, better to do the topicals. Okay. No, you shouldn't do yearly the day before. So question 7 now says a student computer has primary storage. One example of primary storage is RAM. Identify one other example. Let's go with cache this time. So explain why RAM is an example of primary storage and not secondary storage. So why, whenever a question comes up and it asks you why something is an example of primary storage and not an example of secondary storage, the points are pretty much very straightforward. You need to say RAM is directly accessible by CPU. So RAM is directly accessible so RAM is directly accessible by CPU, whereas secondary storage is not accessible by CPU. I studied both from Sir Abbas, which you guys might call Sir Sardar, and also Sir Suleiman. I did not study like the entire course, but yeah, I took their marathon sessions the way you guys are taking mine. So whereas secondary storage is not accessible by CPU. This is one point, and then the second point would be that basically your RAM, it's basically volatile, but your secondary storage is non-volatile. So therefore, it's also not primary storage. So RAM is volatile, whereas secondary storage is non-volatile. Someone yesterday messaged me on my Instagram saying, sir, if we did not complete all the lines, will that give a bad impression to the examiner? So like, should I spam up random stuff so that I show that I filled it up? So guys, there isn't any marks for making an impression. You write the correct point and you're gonna get the marks. Sir, when will we start chapter 5? 5 p.m. inshallah, guys. 5 p.m. We're gonna have a break of 5 minutes, and at 5:05 we're gonna start off with your, what do we call it, chapter number 4, inshallah. Okay. Should not be mentioned because ROM is also prime, but it's not. But the question clearly mentions that you need to explain why RAM is an example. If the question only asked about primary storage, yes, then your point is correct that we should not have been talking about the volatility point. But because the question clearly mentions the fact that it's about RAM, RAM basically is here for the fact that, what do we call it, that you can talk about volatility point. So, Sir Suleiman is in good. I'm telling you guys, Sir Suleiman is an absolute good. Sir Suleiman, the way he teaches chemistry, crazy game, literally. Moving on, part C now says that the student is editing a large video file for a project, and during this process, the RAM becomes full. This makes the computer crash. Describe how virtual memory could come into saving the process. So how does virtual memory act? So it basically acts as an extension to the RAM. What happens is that the secondary storage is basically partition, or like, which means that a small part of it is taken out to create a virtual memory, and then pages are basically transferred from the RAM to the virtual memory to stop the RAM getting full, the way we studied it that day. So you need to write any 3 points up here. Let's write them. So we're going to say virtual memory acts. So you wrote 2 points for 3 marks. I wrote 4 points, by the way. Point number 1, and then this is point number 2. Okay, just give me a minute. Just give me a minute, guys. Can you give me just a second? All right, let's get back to it. Just give me a minute. All right, let's get back to it. So yeah, so the question is asking about 3 marks, and 1 point is that it's accessible by CPU. The second point is that secondary storage is not. Then 1 point is that RAM is volatile, and then the second point is that it's non-volatile. So it's basically 4 points. So it's not 2 points, it's basically 4 points. So you need to now talk about this part. So virtual memory acts as an extension to RAM. Okay, then we say the secondary storage is partitioned. Secondary storage. Yes, Suzafa, your answer is correct. Pages are transferred. Yep, it's correct. The secondary storage is partitioned. And when we mean, what do we mean by partition? We mean by partition that it creates a space, okay, to create the virtual memory. And then the last point is basically that once this virtual memory is created, you transfer the pages. So I say pages can be then transferred. Pages can be then transferred from RAM to the virtual memory. And if anybody wants to write one extra point, you can also say that the last point up here would be to ensure that the RAM does not get full. Perfect. All right, moving on. So part D now says that the computer uses SSD storage. Give 2 features of SSD storage. So you need to basically explain 2 reasons 2 features of SSD. So we studied a lot of features, right? You don't have moving parts. It has NAND NOR chips, or it has NAND NOR technology. It uses semiconductor chips. It uses control gates and floating gates. So all those are valid. Okay, so you might write it uses control gate and floating gate. And then you can say it has no moving parts. Both of them are perfectly fine, and you have multiple other reasons too. Okay, so whatever you might want to go with. It has no moving parts. No moving parts. Part 2 say give two example of solid state storage. So whenever we hear the word solid state, it's not like necessarily SSD. SSD is one part of it, one example of it. So SSD stands for solid state drive. So solid state technology is basically what the whole thing works in, and then we have SSD, which is the solid state drive. Okay, and then the second one could be SD cards, the phones cards which we put into our cards. So SD cards. You can also talk about what we call it USB flash memory, and that could be also fine. Transistors and capacitors, yes, you can also write that it uses cells and transistors, or transistors and capacitors. That's also fine. Or you can also say that yes, it stores it uses electrical charges to store data. Sir, will you take classes of chap 7 and 8? Yes, inshallah. All right, it uses non-enhanced technology, uses cells and transistors. Yep, 2 points, inshallah, correct. Moving on, question 3 says that a computer has primary storage. Give an example and purpose. The same question which we did before, you need to write the same point, but this time you need to, like, if you need to give an example like RAM, and then you need to explain the purpose. So like for instance, if I do it for ROM this time, so now you need to basically tell, guys, just give me a second. Sir Abbas is calling me. Let me just pick it up. Right, we're back. Let's start off. So ROM, what's the purpose of ROM? So ROM, even in that day a class, I told you all that ROM basically stores what? It stores the BIOS, it stores the bootstrap or the bootloader, it stores the startup instruction, it stores the firmware, it's non-volatile, it stores instruction that should not be changed. So you can write all those points. Okay, so I'm going to say to store the BIOS and to store the startup instructions or the bootloader or the firmware, and to store the firmware, the ROM is non-volatile and stores startup instructions. This will get you a 3 by 3. Okay, moving on, question 4c now says that the smartwatch has ROM. Explain why the smartwatch needs ROM. So whenever a question asks you why something needs ROM, so the answer to that is very much redundant. It's the same, that it stores boot up instruction, and it stores the firmware, it stores the BIOS, it stores the instruction that should not be changed. So my answer for whenever an application question comes up is that you write one point to be that to store stores the boot up instruction, and secondly, the best answer up here would be that the second point should be related to how it stores instructions that should not be changed. So maybe like if it's a car, the toy car instruction should be that when you start up, you set the frequency to something. So that is some instruction which I don't want to change. So I can say it stores instructions that should not be changed. That's also a perfect point. Then part D says that the smartwatch uses a text message application that receives data from cloud storage. Describe what is meant by cloud storage. So what is meant by cloud storage? Cloud storage is basically a collection of servers which can allow you users to have remote access to the data, and then the hardware is basically owned by some third party, and then the data is basically accessed through your internet. So I'm going to say it's a collection of web servers. We have a question. Sir, what exactly is firmware? So firmware is basically the boot up stuff, this small item your computer needs to basically load the operating system. Okay, yeah. So it's a collection of server which allows data to be stored, and accessed remotely through internet. internet. Moving on, part 2 now says that you basically need to explain two benefits as to why one should go with cloud storage. Definitely in your book, in my notes, there have been multiple benefits. You can write with any of those. Okay, so I can say can access the data from any device. Okay, so you can talk about that. You might say that there is no need to maintain the hardware, so like security is not your concern. You can increase the storage, or you can say it can have unlimited storage, so no need to worry about running out of storage space. So that could be one point. It can have unlimited storage. So there is no problem or no fear of running out of storage. That's one point. Out of storage, point number one. And point number two could be anything like you are not maintaining the hardware, or you can access the data anywhere. So data is still available if the device breaks down. Okay, so the data can be accessed from anywhere. So if the device breaks, the data can still be recovered. Okay, the data is still available and can be recovered. Writing this will basically get you 4x4. How do you get these two 4x4? So 1 point plus 1 explanation for this, 1 point plus 1 explanation for this, and doing this will get you perfect score. Okay, perfect. Let's move on. So let me just check ये chat box थोड़ा delay से आ रहा है मेरे पास. Let me fix this up so that I can get your questions the moment you type in. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Realistic buy कर लेंगे इंशाल्लाह. Okay, if we had time at the end. So a company uses both SSD and optical storage. Explain why a computer needs secondary storage. So this is the second part of question in regards to why should one have a secondary storage when we have primary. So the reason of having secondary is to basically store data permanently. Otherwise the data would be always required to be installed every time the computer was used. Also the question says explain. Explain basically means that you need to write a point and then you need to write its relevant explanation. The explanation would be regarding the point which you stated. That's something one student even reached out to me with. He said, sir, in marking scheme there are sometimes one point and the next point is again sort of explaining the same thing. So it's because you need to write a point followed by this explanation. Otherwise if you just state two separate points, you won't be getting the marks. That's because they use the keyword explain. So you need to talk about the point stuff. So I'm going to say to store the data permanently, to store the data permanently, otherwise the data or the programs would be always required to reinstall. Otherwise the data or the programs would always be required to reinstall every time the computer gets turned on. The programs would otherwise the data or the programs would also be required to reinstall every time the computer turns on. The computer turns on. Moving on, part B says describe three differences between SSD and optical storage. Such a brilliant question. A brilliant 6-mark question, which if comes in exam, a lot of people would be cooked by just seeing this. But yeah, you don't have to get cooked. So what are the differences? Again, it says describe differences. So 1 point would state one thing about solid state. Then you're going to say that, okay, optical has something different this way. So you can say that solid state drive have no moving parts. For any differences question, I recommend this strategy. Okay, so you say have no moving parts, then you make use of the keyword whereas. So you say whereas optical storage optical storage, or also this is solid state storage, so you don't write drive, you say solid state storage, okay? Whereas optical storage has moving parts, has moving parts. This could be one reason. Second reason could be, let's say, in regards to speed. We know solid state is way more faster, so I can say solid state has a faster data access time, and or like it is faster to access the data in regards or comparison to optical one. So I can say fast solid state has a faster access, has a faster data access time, faster data access time, whereas optical storage has a slower data access time, has a slower data access time. Perfect. And then SSD doesn't have unlimited. No, Rana Musab, that point is invalid. Okay, you cannot say that. At least at this point, that point is invalid. Okay, that was a point which was there back in the previous marking schemes, but right now we do have SSDs which have a lot of storage. Okay, large. We have 2 TB storages, so I don't recommend writing that point because there's a great chance examiner says that it's invalid. So you don't have to take the risk. Okay, third point definitely could be about durability. You can say solid state is more durable, or it runs quietly, or it uses less power. So all those are perfectly fine. Okay, so I can say solid state is more durable, or like solid state consumes less power, whereas optical storage uses more power. What point did you not get, Khizr? Why does chapter 3 exist? To lower the threshold. Simple. Moving on, but question 6 up here says that identify one type of storage that could be built into the portable tablet computer. We did this, so skip. State the purpose of secondary storage. Did. Why does a computer need RAM? Done. A company uses cloud storage. Tick one box to show, which is not a characteristic. Okay, so what's your third point? So sorry, largest storage capacity. Yep, that's correct, Huzafa. You can also write this point that solid state has a larger storage capacity in comparison to optical media, which are like normal DVD. So DVD to 5-6 GB की होती है, Blu-ray भी maximum is of like 140-150 GB, whereas solid state can go up to 2 terabytes. So yeah, okay. So it asks you for characteristic, but it clearly mentions not a characteristic. So data is accessed through a network. Okay. Data is stored locally. Oh hell no, man. The data is stored on a remote. How come that is true? That's incorrect. Clear cut. Data is stored remotely. Of course it is. Physical servers are used to store the data. Yes sir, it is. So B is the incorrect answer. Part B says explain 2 advantages of having the data being stored. So we just did this question. You need to explain the same points. Part C now is a different question. It says explain some disadvantages. So you need to give disadvantages. So you could be that the biggest disadvantage is that internet connection is needed, and if the internet is unstable, data cannot be accessed. So internet connection is needed. Internet connection is needed, and if the connection is not available or unstable, you can say that the data cannot be accessed. And that will get you 2 marks up here. Realistic Ray, I am unable to see your question. सर मेरा क्वेश्चन कर ले, यही आपकी बात है, एंड में करेंगे, सही है इंशाल्लाह सर। एंड कितने चैप्टर्स करेंगे, इसके बाद और भी थोड़े से करने हैं, फिर सही है, exactly. And then there could be one other point too, if you guys want to talk about. You can say that this is something which is relevant to the employees factor, but you can also talk about this one other point, that when the data is stored remotely, perhaps this point ko avoid kar lo, because this might be considered vague. So yeah, that's wrong. But yeah, you can also talk about, not in this question, but if you might want to talk about potential failure, that's also something. But potential failure is not a very strong point. You know why? Because at this point, these companies, they make use of something known as data redundancy, which basically means that they store the data on more than one servers. Okay, so they store the data on multiple servers. So even if one of the servers get failed down or like they get cooked, don't worry, we have multiple other servers, so the data does not get deleted. So that point, writing that point in 2026 might not be counted correctly. Okay, so keep this in your mind. Sir, can we say data is insecure? No, that will be invalid. Data will be most probably secure. All of our data, like literally everything at this point, was over cloud storages. So do I say that it's not secure? Okay, let's move on. So let's do this question. This is a good question. It says a computer has secondary storage and that the table contains statements about secondary storage. Complete the table by writing the type of secondary storage that applies to each statement. Some types of secondary storage may apply to more than one statement. So data is stored using PIDs and LANs. So what is that part which stores data using PIDs and LANs? It's my optical media. Then it says data is stored using control gates and floating gates. Pretty much easy that it's going to be my solid state. Then it says data is stored using electromagnets. Electromagnets and magnetism comes out from the magnetic type of storage. So it's going to be magnetic. Then it says that data is stored using a laser. So laser again is going to be my optical media. Okay, and then finally it says data is stored on a platter that is divided into tracks and sectors. So which one was that in which we had tracks and sectors? It was the magnetic one. So I'm going to again say it has to be magnetic. Chapter 5-6 ka loga inshallah. No, like it can be seen by company owners, but yeah, the data which they are storing on the server, that is work related stuff. So even if the company is sort of saying the work related stuff, to masla to nahi hona chahiye. Okay. Yeah, so part B now says two differences. Again, we did it, so we're going to skip this question. We're going to move on to question number 13. It says that a storage and memory are important components of computer system. Primary storage is one type of storage in a computer system. Tick one box to show which is an example of primary storage. Not this, of course this, not this. One characteristic of primary storage, you can say it has a volatile memory or it could be directly accessible by the CPU, whatever you might want to say. So I can talk about maybe directly accessible by the CPU. Accessible by the CPU. Sir, how many marks should I get in P1? As high as possible, buddy. Virtual memory can be created in a computer system. Complete the description about virtual memory. Use the terms from the list. Some terms may be used more than once. So virtual memory is used when the dash is full. We all know it has to be RAM. So they gave you ROM and RAM, so remember it's an RAM. When the RAM is full. It is created by partitioning the what? The secondary storage. So do we have any secondary storage up here? Yes, we do have the hard disk. So we're going to write the hard disk up here. So hard disk drive. Then we say that the data is basically divided into what? So the data is basically divided into pages. The data is basically divided into pages that can be sent from the RAM to the hard disk. This time I'm going to write it HDD to save the time, to be temporarily stored until they are required. Can I get 75 marks in paper 1? Of course you can get. Sir, please do input output devices questions. Also, we did input output devices questions, Maliha. I guess you joined a bit late. You can view it later on. हमने वो सारे कर दिया at the start. So we did like the first 20 minutes, 25 minutes वही questions. Okay. Perfect. Let's move on. So we did what is meant by this, done. So let's do this one question and then we can do chapter number 3.4. So secondary storage devices are used to store data in a computer, and that circle three components that are secondary storage devices. So hard disk is, SSD is, and among all of the others, compact disk is, which is my CD, which is what? Which is basically optical. Sir, will virtual memory not replace hard disk? No, but yeah, can be sent from basically the. Acha. Now the thing is, you can write both hard disk and if you write virtual memory, that should also be a correct point. Let me confirm it with the marking scheme. Let me confirm it. Just a second. Marking scheme 3.3. This is question number 13. So yeah, you see the question clearly in the marking scheme states, let me take a screenshot for you all too, that you basically have both of them correct. Why? Because your virtual memory that exists within your hard disk, right? So I can say that if within my hard disk virtual memory exists, so even if I write HDD, that's also perfectly fine. But if anybody might want to go with virtual memory, that's also fine. Sir, why shouldn't we do yearly past paper? Because what if the paper does not go well and then you're like, okay, I'm cooked, I haven't prepared. Oh my, मुझे कुछ नहीं आता सर, मुझे कोई tips नहीं, मुझे कुछ करे, मैं तो मर जाऊंगा. And फिर आपकी जो तैयारी थी वो भी cook हो जाती है, सही? The last one is not wrong. The last one allows both of the answers. You can have a look at the marking scheme too. Okay, I hope it's clear now. So it's up to you, whatever you might want to go with. Why is this correct? Because definitely your virtual memory that comes within the hard disk. Okay, so it's hard disk, and within the hard disk we have the virtual memory. So even if you write virtual memory, it's still within the hard disk. So the page either way is coming to the hard disk. Okay, so yeah. Right, moving on. So done with this. Then this is tick one box to show which statement about secondary storage is correct. So it is directly accessible. No, it's not. It is magnetic storage only. No, we have other types like optical and solid state. It is used to store permanently. Yep. It is volatile. No, it's non-volatile. Okay. Perfect. Moving on, part B says that the mobile phone uses RAM and ROM, and the two are examples of the same type of storage. Identify this type of storage and justify your answer. So why, what's the type and why? So I'm going to say these two are primary storage, are primary storages, and they are directly accessible by the CPU. Accessible by the CPU. By the CPU. No, we did input output devices in the first 20 minutes of today's class. It was only for 20 minutes. No, it shouldn't be for 20 minutes. It's fully available for 2 hours. Let me even check. It should be fully available for 2 hours. Let me check. Okay, so you go to the live section, and yes, it's available. It's of 2 hours and 34 minutes. Okay, so this ain't out of syllabus. Nah, it's not ain't out. It's not out of syllabus. It's within the syllabus. Okay. Finally, this is the last question I'm going to do for the memory part. So it says 5 statements are about RAM and internal SSD and blah 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 stuff, and we need to see which one has what option. So it's a type of primary storage. RAM is a primary storage. None of the other are. It is volatile. RAM is volatile. None of the other are. It uses NAND and NOR technologies. It's my SSD. It does not have moving parts. Again, it's my SSD. It is not directly connected to the CPU. So it's my SSD and my SD card. Why? Because this is talking about secondary storage, which is not directly accessible by my CPU. Hence, the answer for this is basically this. And this will get you 5 by 5. Perfect. So now let's quickly jump into some questions from chapter number 3.4. I want to do a few questions of that too, because a lot of times I haven't seen questions being tested from there. So it's gonna help you, sir. USB flash. Oh yeah, yeah. You guys are correct. My bad. This also has no moving. And perhaps flash memory drive, this should also be NAND and NOR, because flash memory drive also follows the same logic of having NAND and NOR technology. So yes, you guys are correct. I messed it up. The two are both solid state. So whatever goes for your SSD drive, that also goes for the flash memory drive. That's so great to know, Zephyr. The last one, any one will get the mark. No, you need to write both of them, guys. You need to write both of them. So if you miss any one of them, the marking is done row wise. So if you miss any correct tick, like let's say one of you just puts one tick and they miss this one, you're gonna get -1. Remember that. Okay? Yeah. Yep. It is. So let's go. We are done with this. So now we're gonna bring in some questions for the topic related to internet and MAC address and IP address and all that stuff. So let me just load it up. Shout out to the people who created these documents. I'm going to compile my document inshallah for the next session, but for now, shout out to the person who created this. All right, let's start off with this then. So the question says that basically you have a computer which has both a MAC address and an IP address. Tick one box to show which of the statement is correct about the MAC address. So when we talk about MAC address is the one which has been set by your company, which is the one which does not usually gets changed. It's the one which basically is something. Just give me a second. Yeah, so it's basically the one which does not change and all that stuff. So take one box to show which of the statement is correct. It is assigned by manufacturer. Okay. It is assigned by router, no, that's my IP address. It can be static or dynamic, no, that's my IP address. It is made of 3 parts, no, that's my packet basically being made of 3 parts. Okay, so an IP address can have an IPv6 or IPv4 format. Give an example that is an IPv4 format. So v4 format is the one which we have in Pakistan. Okay, so we can write something like 192.165.172.3 maybe. So the main point up here is to ensure that whatever you write, the value needs to be basically within the range of 0 to 255, and that there needs to be 4 groups. Okay, that's what they are trying to look up here. So 1.245.424, 4 would be wrong. Why? Because when you talk about an IPv4 format allows between 0 to 255. So the maximum you can write is up to 255. So you cannot write 256 anywhere up here. That would be wrong. Okay. Then part 2 says give 2 characteristics of the version 6 format of IP. So characteristics are that basically it has more bits, so it uses 128 bits, and it has hexadecimal. It is separated by colons. You can write all those parts. So I can say it has 128 bits, and then you can say it is separated by colons, or it uses hexadecimal. It uses hexadecimal. Whatever you guys like. Okay, both of them are correct. Sir, is this thing written at the back of your exam? What thing? What thing is written at the back of your exam? Okay, let's move on. So question 8 says draw an annotated diagram to represent the role of a router. So you need to explain what a router does. So a router main work is that within the router we're going to have packets. The packets are going to have IP address, and then the router is going to send the packet in the correct destination using the fastest available route. Okay, so that fastest available route when goes towards the destination device, the IP. So no, the IP won't be written. It's just something you need to make on your own. Okay, so it's just an example. आप खुद से कोई बनाओगे. So now let's start off. So you're gonna make a diagram like this to demonstrate that this is, let's say, my router. Inside your router, you're gonna have the packet. So the packet comes inside your router, and then what does a packet contain? A packet has like your IP address, right? It has the IP address of where to go. Okay, and then what's the role of a router? Router is basically going to send the data to the receiver. So send it to the receiver to the fastest path. So I'm going to say the packet is transmitted towards the receiver through the fastest available route. So don't we have to explain it? No, you don't have to explain it, because the question was of only 2 marks. 2 marks basically means just state the points. If the question was of 4 marks, then yes, for all of them you need to provide explanation. Sir, could we draw these diagrams using a pencil? Yep, you can. Sir, लेकिन doesn't router have to function to assign IP? तो yep. So you see, we have the packet. The packet assigns the IP address. This is within the router, and then the router basically resends it towards the receiver node, and then sends it through the fastest available route. That's the point. Clear? So the main point up here was to showcase that you basically have the router, and you can even write this point that where it's assigning IP, you can say that the router examines packets to look for a header, or you can also say like the packet which comes up here, that might have come from some other node, right? The way we have a system, it works in a way, one node, it goes to the second node, then the third one. So all these circles, these are basically routers. So you can also explain that part, that you can maybe connect it this way, and you can write that the router examines the packet for the header to see where it needs to be sent. Okay, sir, वो different paths नहीं दिखाने like other routers. That is packet switching. That's not router. That is packet switching when the question asks you to explain that part कि जहाँ पे आपके पास router है, that goes to another router, then another, then goes down, that connecting there, that goes up here, this comes up here, and there is the receiver B, and this is basically the receiver A. That is packet switching. Okay, so it's not basically your packet switching, it is just explaining the role of a router role is to basically get the packet, check its IP address, and then retransmit it in the best possible way. Okay, so that's the thing. So, sir, can we annotate the router connected? No, that's something else. Sir, want fastest route be same for each packets? No, not necessarily. So, if I say that one packet, if I say that there are three computers and I want to send the data to person C, okay, person B. So, if I have to send it to person B, how do I do it? Just a second. So if I have to send the data to person number C, definitely, and I have to send it from A, the shortest path is that you directly take this path. But if I, let's say, want to send it to B, then it might be this one rather than going through this red path. So you see, it differs for everybody. Okay. Yeah, that's my roommate's alarm. He was sleeping. My bad. So, yeah, that's the whole thing. Okay, so vivid the local area network, wide area network, if that a question comes on that, सिर्फ तब आपने करना है, सही है? Otherwise, this is what the question expects from you when you're talking about the role of a router. So just give me a second, let me connect my charger. The battery is running low, and then उसके बाद फिर start off होते हैं, सही है? Is LAN WAN in the syllabus? Yep, it is. Yes, it is. We do have local area network, wide area network. Sir, are you Pathan? Yes, I am Pathan. Sir, one question on ISP, please. ISP is basically, मैं बता देता हूँ, ISP is basically that person, is basically that service provider who gives you the access to internet. So it's the internet service provider. Do you live in Lums Hostel? Yes. What's LAN WAN? यार unknown by go to open up my stream, उसके end में chapter 3 वाले में मैंने कराया हुआ है, देख लेना, सही है? Question nahi aaya, but this doesn't mean that it cannot be tested, right? It can be tested. Moving on, question 3 says that the photograph are also transmitted across the network to the cloud storage. The device on the network forwards the data towards its correct destination. What's the name of the device? It's router. Okay. Moving on, a computer is connected to a network and assigned an IPv4 address. Tick one box to show which device should assign the IPv4 address. So it's not your DNS. Oh, okay. That's a good question. It's not your NIC because that assigns your MAC address. Okay. Then it's not the web server either. The question comes up whether it's the router or whether it's the DNS. Remember, it's always the route. Why not DNS? Because DNS is not assigning you the IP address. It's the router. DNS is basically that part which is sort of having a list where you have the URLs and you have its corresponding IP addresses. So a lot of people will make this mistake by choosing A to B as the correct answer, but it's not. It's not. You see, Rana even said that it's A, but it's not. It's not DNS. It's router. Remember this. Because your DNS does not assign IP, your DNS already stores IP. So it has pre-stored IPs within it. So it's sort of a database which has the IP address and the URL. But for a computer connected to a network, it's always your router which basically assigns the IP. When will it finish? It is going to finish at 6 p.m. Inshallah. So describe the characteristics of an IPv4 address. So it has how many bits? So you can say it is ternary based, it has 32 bits, it's separated by dots, it is a unique address, it could be both public and private, so anything like that. Okay, so you can say it is ternary based, which means that it has numericals inside it. It is ternary based and is of 32 bits. The groups are separated using separated using full stops or period signs, using dots. Okay, and it's a unique IP address. It's a unique IP address that can be both That can be of basically two types. One is going to be public or private, and it could be static or dynamic. That can be both static or dynamic. Oh, what happened? Or dynamic. There you go. Done with this question. Adding this will get you 4 by. Wow, mashallah, mashallah. So LAN WAN is in chapter 3. I don't know. It is in the syllabus. I get to know. Yes, it is in chapter 3. It is in the syllabus. Review क्यों नहीं देखी? क्यों नहीं हो रही पढ़ाई भाई? ये चैप्टर 3 में है इसलिए क्योंकि आप जाके जो मैंने रिवीजन किया वो देख लो, उसमें समझ आ जाएगा. There you go. That is it for today. Okay, guys. So we did a few questions. We did like 4 questions for this too. That was a very good class for chapter number 3. So we have covered up chapter 3 in great detail, all the parts. I hope you guys are now clear with it, inshallah. So let's have a break till 5:15, and then after 5:15 you can again join in, and then we can have the part of chapter number 4 discussed, inshallah, in the other 45 to 15 minutes. Okay. So yeah, break till 5:15. So let me even write this up here. 5:15. Right, assalamu alaikum. Am I audible? All right, let's start off, guys. I've sent the message in the group. Let's jump on to some questions from the topic number 5 now. So let me just show the display. Sorry, topic number 4, my bad. So we're gonna just jump into some topic 4 questions. We're gonna try to do the questions in the next 35 to 40 minutes, inshallah. Chapter number 5 again is divided into 3 main parts. The first one is regarding the internet, World Wide Web, all that stuff. The second one discusses the digital currency, whereas the third one basically discusses your cyber security. Now, all 3 of them, to be honest, are important, but among all 3 of them, if I'm being honest, the most important one which I feel like is for all of us is the cybersecurity one. Okay, we cannot take risk on cybersecurity. There has to be a question on it. Sir, earlier part of the stream cannot be, yeah, currently it cannot be accessed because it's the live stream. Okay, but then after the live stream has been over and we have finished everything, then you would be basically able to access it. Don't worry. So let me just download the question paper and let's start off. So yes, so let me download it up, download, and let me bring it in here. Import network, hardware, internet, and World Wide Web. Okay. Chap 4 is just a, oh, by the way, is this, oh, my bad. Why do I make this mistake? Chapter 4 करने में chapter 5 start कर दूँ. My bad. So yeah, that's in chapter 5. My bad, guys. So let me import the chapter 4 content, perhaps. Import chapter 4. All right, let's start off with the chapter number 4 content. So this is a question from chapter number 4, which discusses stuff related to your software. It discusses stuff related to firmware. It discusses stuff related to how you boot up the computer. It discusses stuff related to all that stuff. Okay, so we're going to discuss everything, inshallah, in great detail. Sir, is SRAM and DRAM included? You should know what it is because SRAM is a type of cache memory, so you should know it with that perspective, but explicitly a question will not be tested upon what's SRAM and what's DRAM. So do we need to learn the function of every input output device? Yes, you need to only know the purpose. Working nahi, function pata hona chahiye. So the first question says that what is meant by firmware? Someone even asked this question. So firmware basically refers to the permanent instructions that are stored in the RAM, which allows the operating system a platform to run on. So I'm going to say permanent instructions stored on the RAM, instructions stored that provides the computer, or that provides the operating system a platform to run on. Operating system a platform to run on. Okay, you cannot see the question. एक second. Let me see. Why is the screen stuck? It shouldn't be stuck though. एक second. So it's okay. You might be able to see it now. Just a second. Yeah, let me wait and see. आप लोग को सही होता है या नहीं? Oh, luckily my coding platform just opened up, but yeah, never mind. Let me change it. Yeah, now it's perfectly fine. Perfect. Let's jump on to the content. So that's how you're going to do the first question. Okay, moving on. The second question says that interrupts are generated when the robot is operating in the factory. Give 2 examples of interrupts that could be generated. So interrupts are usually of 2 types. It's either like hardware error, either software error, or it could be like something caused by low battery, maybe by user input. So you can write any of them. So I'm going to write maybe hardware error, the most common one. Okay, so hardware error, and then the second one could be software error. Software error. And writing these 2 points will get you a perfect 2 by 2. Question 2 says that each employee in a finance company has a computer and an electronic account. Each computer has an operating system. One function of the operating system is to manage the memory. Describe the role of the operating system in managing memory. Someone asked me this question, sir, functions of operating system karne ya nahi karne? Yes, you need to memorize the functions of operating system so you can answer this question. So what's the purpose of an operating system? What's the function? Its function is to make sure memory is used efficiently, to make sure that the memory is used efficiently. The memory is used efficiently. Yes, it is stored on the ROM. Where did I write it, RAM? Oh, my bad. That's wrong. Yeah. Thank you so much. To make sure that the memory is used efficiently. Another question is, sir, don't we have to write it specific example? So the question does not specifically specify, okay, but if you want to write it that way, that's also perfectly fine. So maybe in software error you might write something like division by 0. In hardware error you might enter something like for instance battery low, something like that. So that's also perfectly fine. Okay, then that's one point. The second point is that it allocates and deallocates the memory to process. It ensures that the process is being actioned, or like the one which is being provided the memory, it has enough memory available. It what do we call it, creates a virtual memory. That's also a point it does. So I can say efficiently. Then second point could be regarding how it could allocate. It allocates and deallocates memory. Deallocates memory. Then third point could be exactly Vivid, perfect. It checks or it ensures that two instructions, not files, okay, that two instructions do not try to or do not access the same memory location. Do not access the same memory location. And last point could be that it what do we call it, sets up the virtual machine, so a virtual memory. So it can say it creates the virtual memory. So that's one function of the operating system. The question is just saying that there is a function of operating system known as managing memory. What does that mean? So you need to explain all that stuff. It allows multitasking. No, multitasking is not something which is being done by management of memory. That's a separate function of an operating system. So this question explicitly asks you to discuss the function which is managing memory and explaining what it is. How about it tracks the movement of data from RAM? Data from RAM ki jagah, you can, rather than stating that, you can say that it moves data from the memory to the storage. That might be a better part. Okay, so yeah, this is your chapter number 4 main questions. These are stuff which you're going to be tested upon, especially with OS and their functions. You should know what are their functions. Questions aa sakte hain is tarah. Okay, moving on. Question 3 says different types of software can be run on a computer. What is meant by a software? A very easy question. So it's basically a program or instruction that is used to operate a computer. So instructions that are used to operate a computer. Yes, Shahan, you would, inshallah. Operate a computer. Partition point. If you want to discuss the partition point up here, that's also pretty much valid. If you want to talk about partition, then you would say, yeah, that's fine. If you write creates a memory partition, perfectly fine. Good to go. Okay. Part B says utility software is one type of software that can be run on a computer. Take one box to show which software is an example. So a lot of you were reaching out to me, said utility software, sir, do we need to memorize all that stuff? Yes, no. So that was the reason why I was saying that you should have a good idea of what utility softwares are. Okay, so you're gonna get a question on this. By the way, I feel like I should do a revision session for chapter number 6. कर लूं या ना करूं? But I guess यार करने का कोई फायदा नहीं है यार. क्लास में आप लोग आते नहीं हो तो मतलब आते तो हो, like we do have a very good strength alhamdulillah, but still Yeah, so it says which of them is an example of utility software. So utility software is the one which your operating system requires for its own correct usage. The second one is known as application software. Application software is the one which the user requires. So it might not be necessarily required by the operating system. Spreadsheet, it's definitely spreadsheet is required by what do we call it, your by the user. So this is wrong. Antivirus, yes, operating system requires it. आपके कंप्यूटर में built in आते हैं antivirus, सही है. Web browser, again your user requires it. Database, again user requires it. Okay, so the answer to this is basically B. Part C says identify the type of software that manages inputs and outputs for the computer. So this will be a very good question. आपको काफी लोग को ये पता भी नहीं होगा, but it's literally operating system. Operating system. Okay, or you can even write system software. If you write that, that's also perfectly fine. System software. System software. Sir, at night today कर लें भाई, मेरे अपने finals हो रहे हैं. If I show you my schedule, you're gonna understand. Okay, मैंने अपने फाइनल्स को छोड़ के तुम लोग की 2-2 ढाई घंटे की क्लासेस ले रहे हो, रात को क्लास पे रखूं. Okay, I'm gonna do it. Okay, I'm gonna do chapter 6 revision inshallah. Chapter question 4 says a student uses both system software and application software on their computer. Give an example of system software. Again, the session would be tomorrow inshallah. I won't be doing it today. So an example of utility software of a system software could be operating system. Or you could write any system software which you might want to write. Okay, so you can write any system of software which we have in the book. So whatever you might want to go with, any utility software maybe. So you could write any utility software up here. Even by example 2. Give 2 examples of application software. So anything which a user uses. So you can write word processor, you could write spreadsheets, you could write databases, you could write games. So all those are perfectly fine. Spreadsheets. Okay. Sir, can we write BIOS? No, BIOS would be wrong. It says the software that manages the input output. BIOS basically, BIOS should be a correct point, but BIOS stated explicitly will be incorrect according to the marking scheme, because it's the operating system which eventually connects everything to the CPU from input to output. So it's like you give some input and that input is processed by your operating system to finally create an output. So it's your OS which is the main person up here. It's not your BIOS. Okay. Moving on, part C says describe the differences between system software and application software. So you need to just state difference. One could be that application software allows the user to perform tasks, whereas system software manages the hardware or software. So system software manages the hardware, which is like it ensures that every hardware piece is working perfectly, whereas application software allows the users, application software on the other end allows the users to perform tasks, This will basically get you 2 by 2 in this question. Okay, moving on, question 6 says a computer needs firmware and system software. What's the purpose of firmware? We just discussed this. It basically stores instructions to maybe boot up the computer. So stores instructions to boot up the computer. Uzaifa, no, it's better to write the point that it manages or maintains the hardware. Okay, then give an example of firmware. So an example we all know, right? It could be BIOS, it could be Bootstrap, all of these, bootloader, whatever you might want to call it. All of these are basically firmwares. Okay, give 2 examples of system software. So an example could be operating system, and it could be any utility software. You can just write utility software, or you can even write something like, what do we call it, a specific utility software of your choice. Moving on, part D says that the mobile telephone has an operating system. Describe the purpose of an operating system. So the operating system basically performs basic functions of a computer. It manages the hardware, it provides a platform on which softwares can run, it provides a user interface, it performs tasks. So I can say it performs the basic functions of a computer. So an operating system performs the basic functions of a computer, basic functions of a computer. It provides an interface. It provides an interface to the users. And provides a platform on which softwares can run. So even if you write this, you're going to get 3 marks. But I would recommend that because you have space and the question does not specify how many points to write, I would say that it's better to write 4 points, okay, on which softwares can run. And rather than saying that it allows hardware and software to run without problem, you say that it also manages hardware, because we just talked about the software previously. So it also manages the hardware. Correct up here. Can you mention the memory points? No, it's explicitly asking you for operating system. हमने operating system की ही बतानी. सही है? Alright, moving on. The next question says that a user has both system software and application software installed on their computer. Describe the difference between system software and application software. Give an example of each software in your answer. We just did this, so I'm going to skip it. It's similar to this system versus application word, but now you also need to give one example for each of them. So skip it up. Part B says state which component in the computer would store both type of software and the power is turned off. So what is that component in your computer which is going to store both types of software? So both system software and application software. It's my secondary storage, okay? So secondary storage could be of what type? You can write hard disk, you can write SSD, you can write so either hard disk, HDD, or either it has to be SSD. Okay, moving on. Firmware is wrong. Firmware does not store your operating system. It only stores the instruction to load the operating system. Okay. Question 4 says complete the statements about different types of software. Use the terms from the list. Some of the terms will not be used. So dash software provides the services that the computer requires. So what are the software which provides the computer the services which it requires? It's the system softwares. And an example has also been provided that it's the utility software. Then dash software is run on the operating system. It's your application software which are basically run on the operating system. The dash system is run on the firmware. And then which of the system? It's basically has to be what system, guys? What do you guys think? It has to be what? Is it system? Is it application, or is it something else? It's my operating. So it's the operating system which is going to be run, thanks to the firmware, which is then run on the dash. So basically the way it happens is that the firmware brings up the operating system, and then the operating system is then basically run upon the hardware. So the system moves in a way that you have firmware. The firmware is basically stored in something we call as BIOS. Okay, and then this basically loads up your operating system, and then the operating system works upon the hardware, and this alongside this, it allows you to make use of system softwares, and it allows you to make use of application software. So that's like the whole logic of how it works. Moving on, question 9 says that when a user is reading a text on the mobile phone, they may also get a telephone call on the mobile phone. An interrupt signal is generated that results in an output to inform the user that a person is calling them. Describe how the interrupt signal is processed. Now remember, this interrupt question sort of has a very similar answer. So whatever I'm just writing up here, keep this in your mind and you can write it almost everywhere. So first thing is that the interrupt signal is always sent to the CPU. So the CPU stops whatever it is doing to service the interrupt. The current data is stored somewhere, okay, and then an interrupt service routine is used to service the interrupt. Once it has been serviced, by serviced I mean it has been executed, okay, mission completed, problem solved. The message is displayed and you say that whatever was previously being done, that is being reinstated. So I'm going to say that the interrupt signal is sent to the CPU. The interrupt signal is sent to the CPU, is sent to the CPU. The CPU checks the priority, and if it is higher than the current task, and if it is higher than the current task, then the data of the current task, is stored. The current task has been stored, and then the data of the current task will be stored, and this interrupt would be serviced, and the interrupt would be serviced using what? Using the interrupt service routine. Be serviced using the interrupt service routine. Using the interrupt service routine. Once the interrupt has been serviced, the message would be displayed. The message, we are currently doing chapter number 4, Fawad. The message would be displayed, and the task which was being done previously, that would be reinstated. Yes, the current data is stored in a buffer. The time that was being done previously, that will be reinstated. How long will the class gonna be? It's gonna go till 6:10, inshallah. Maybe even before that. एक यार, एक तो क्लास लेते ऊपर से पूछते भी, ये तो मुझे पूछना चाहिए, how long do I need to teach? But yeah, that's it. Moving on, question 10 says that the computer in the ticket machine has an operating system, and that one function of the operating system is to provide an interface. State 3 other functions. Now we have a lot of functions. We can talk about all of them. So you can say multitasking. You can talk about managing the files. You can talk about managing the memory. You can talk about managing hardware, handling interrupts, managing user accounts, providing security. So all of those are perfectly fine. Managing memory, and let's say providing security. Yes, we do have a class tomorrow, inshallah. Sir, 15 marker question paper 1 में या paper 2? यार, let me take a screenshot. यार मतलब, if you're asking this question while you have a paper literally perso, then that's sort of a bit crazy, yeah. But yeah, it is in paper number 2, bro. Sir, how about after the interrupt is serviced, it checks for more problems before running? Nah. So it's like you look, you're doing something, and then something important comes up. You stop whatever you're doing at this point. You do the important part, then you go back to the thing which you are currently doing, and let's say if something is still more important, then that comes up again. So that step repeats, and if something has to again do, so wo phir aa jata hai. When will tomorrow class start? So tomorrow is Tuesday. Tomorrow class will be again at the same time, 4. So we're gonna have a 4 to most probably 7 p.m. class tomorrow, inshallah. I'm gonna do chapter 5 plus chapter number 6 topicals. And because you all were requesting, no ISR नहीं लिख सकते. अगर आप लोगों ने ISR लिखा, that was the reason why I said full form लिखो, number कट जाएंगे अगर examiner को समझ ना आए what ISR is. So it's recommended write full forms. Okay, so 5 and 6 topicals, and then you can sort of say that we can also do chapter 6 revision, inshallah. हम लोगों ने इतनी रिक्वेस्ट कर दी है, सो कर लेते हैं, क्या याद रखोगे यार, सब्सक्राइब कराते नहीं हो दोस्तों से, लेकिन चलो कर लेते हैं, नो प्रॉब्लम. So question 9 says that Padma opens an application on her computer and that an interrupt is generated to inform the CPU that the application has been input. Give three other examples of when an interrupt signal could be generated. So maybe a mouse button clicked, maybe a printer runs out of paper, maybe you can say I can say that the value is being a calculation where a number is being divided by zero. सही है, so I can say number being divided by zero, being divided by zero, divided by zero. Then a mouse button has been clicked, and then third could be, let's say, printer is out of paper, I did not have AdMats. I wish I had AdMats, but I did not. Out of paper. कीबोर्ड प्रॉब्लम भी लिख सकते हो. लो बैटरी का ये कि लो बैटरी is might not be correct because it says computer. Computer does not have a battery. It's a laptop or a mobile phone which has a battery, right? So you cannot talk about battery up here. So make a bit of sense उस लिहाज से. Okay. अब यहाँ पे it asks you for examples. Okay. So it's better to give the specific examples rather than just saying hardware failure या software failure. It's better to give specific examples. So yeah, that's it. Moving on, part B now says state what would happen if interrupt signals were not used. So if they were not used, the biggest hurdle would have been that the computer will not be able to multitask. So this multitasking is something which is being done all thanks to interrupts. So the computer would then not be able to multitask. So we did some like 11 questions for chapter number 4.1. Okay, and now I'm going to start off with chapter number 4.2, which is about the IDE's translator and all that stuff, and I want to spend the next 10-15 minutes on that. Yes, we're going to complete chapter 4 today, don't worry, inshallah. We're going to cover it up. We're just left with a few questions. So sir, have you got your software revised? What's the software? आप सिंगर्स का क्यों पूछ रहे हो? इधर इतना सीरियस सीन हो रहा है, ये देखो आप सिंगर्स का पूछ रहे हो. गाने सुनने ना सुना करो, कोई फायदा नहीं है सुनने का. We had a lot of questions, but let me load up. So import, and we have 4.2. All right, let's start off with this. So a programmer writes a program to store, and I got straight A's in my A-levels. So inshallah. Sir, chapter software वाला उसमें क्या revision नहीं करा रहे हमें. We just did revision for chapter 3 and we'll do revision for chapter 6 inshallah. I don't have time to cover up all that stuff. Sir, guys have to write the names of the singers in there. Oh, crazy. Sir, please tell me the difference between check digit and checksum. ये मैंने उस दिन बताया, check digit is only going to be there when you make use of check digit is only when you are on a checking point, when you have some sort of barcode, when you are trying to enter data entry पे check digit होगा. Transmission of data जब हो रहा हो, when data is being transmitted, then you use checksum. Data transmission के time पे you do not make use of check digit. Remember this. Okay, so question 3 says the programmer writes a program to store and sort all the data for the books in our home library. The programmer uses a high level language to write the program. One reason for writing using a HHL, which is high level programming language, is that it is easier to read and write. Give two other reasons. So definitely one could be that it is easier to debug, and then the second is that it's going to be portable, and you can also say that it's less likely to make errors. So I can say it is easier to debug, and the program would be basically portable. So you can talk about portability. The program is portable. writing the point that it's easier to read and write, that will be incorrect, okay, because that's already written in the question. Sir, agar dekho guys, if check digit comes up in exam, if it comes up in exam, they will specifically tell you how to calculate check digit alongside an example. So don't worry, you don't have to memorize anything of that ISBN modulo, anything, okay? Chill, wo kuch nahi aa raha inshallah. Moving on, part B says that a programmer uses an what do we call it, IDE to write the program. One function of the IDE is to provide a translator. Complete the statements about the translator. So a compiler translates the dash at once before dashing it. So a compiler translates the entire code, whole code at once before basically dash. So it basically before, okay, so it translates the whole code before doing what? Before executing it. So I'm going to say that a compiler translates the whole code before executing it. A compiler produces an error report that displays dash error. That displays what errors? Some errors, all errors, what? It displays all errors because it's a compiler. It first compiles everything, produces a report which has all the errors and gives it to you. Then an interpreter translates and executes the code line by line. We know this, line by line. An interpreter stops execution when a dash is found, when an error is found. Sir, what did you do the day before your CIE? I guess I was doing questions. I was just doing practice. I was doing as much practice as possible. So part 2 says give two other functions commonly found in an IDE and state the role of each function. So you can talk about any of the functions. You can talk about code editor. So let's do code editor this time. So what's a code editor? It's basically that thing which allows your program to be written. So it allows the program to write or change the code. Allows the programmer to write or slash change the code. To write slash change the code. And then second one could be something like pretty print. So if you might want to make use of pretty print, you can say pretty print. And for pretty print, you need to basically explicitly mention the keyword that the command words are given different colors. The command words is a keyword here. If you don't write that, you're going to lose marks, okay? The command words. So if you say text to find this, that's incorrect. You're going to get 0, Abu Bakr. Okay, you're going to get 0. So you need to write that the command words are highlighted with different colors. Are highlighted with different colors. With different colors. Different colors. Programmer can focus on problem instead of hardware manipulation in question number 1. Question number 1 किधर है मुझे तो नहीं पता. अगर ये बोल रहे हो, so that would be wrong. No, because you need to explain why you use high level language. So it's not like hardware manipulation वाला point you can say. Okay. हाँ, मैं सर मेरा सवाल करवा दें अल्लाह अकबर कर देंगे इंशाल्लाह. So question 7 says a computer programmer uses an IDE when creating a computer program. What is the correction in it? So if you want to make use of the auto compilation, so auto compilation तो कोई word ही नहीं है. It has to be auto correction. It needs to be auto correction by the way. या auto completion हो सकता है. Okay, so if you talk about auto completion, you're going to say it's a programmer that when he's typing the code is going to be getting the suggestions for completing it. What was my grade in CS? So I had an A star and then I had a top in Pakistan distinction in computer science. So explain the purpose of an IDE. So you're required to explain the purpose of what an IDE does. So when you're asked for the purpose, you need to tell them that, okay, it's software which is used to write or develop code. It has a lot of features such as auto completion and it translates the code to low level language. Simple. So it is a piece of software that is used to write code, that is used to write and develop code. It has multiple features or functions. It has multiple features like What was the threshold in my time? I don't remember. I guess it was, my paper was difficult. I guess it was 108 if I'm not wrong. We can have a look at it. Let me check it. 111th summer 23 0478. I am not sure how much marks I got because back then they did not give the scripts. So let me find computer science. So the threshold for an A star was 109. My paper was really challenging, I remember. Okay. Yeah, 109. Especially the paper 2. I was the first ever batch in Pakistan to give the 15 marker. So like even if I scored like a 148, I got like a distinction. Okay. So I'm unable to remember chapter 4 revise notes and फिर topicals करते जाओ जितने कर सकते हो करो. So it has multiple features like auto completion, and auto, like you can say, and pretty print. And then the last point could be that it translates the code into machine language or into machine code. It translates the programming code or high level programming code. Okay. Sir, what would be the threshold for this year? So the threshold is always something one can predict after giving the paper. So we haven't seen the paper. We aren't sure whether it's going to be easy, difficult. If it was easy, threshold high hoga. If it was average, it has to be around that 115 marks range. If it was difficult the way we had it at our time, it could be around 107, 108 and all that stuff. So these are not topicals. Bhai aur kya hai ye? These are topicals. Topicals refer to when you have topic-wise questions. Alright, let's move on. So why is CS threshold low? Good question. CS threshold is low because people make dumb mistakes, okay? They think that, okay, yes, I'm gonna get easy 75. And वो फिर random खुद से चीजें लिखते हैं and then they get cooked because examiner does not give you marks if you write random stuff. So yeah. Sir, any idea how it can be? So like that May June 25 paper, that was very easy paper, okay? Very easy paper. And in that the 15 marker was even cancelled, which means that every student got 15 by 15. So ideally the threshold for May June 2025 seemed to be the highest as of now, which was 124 out of 150. So this has to be, like, in my opinion, the highest threshold unless something even way more easier comes up. But this was like a very easy paper. Everybody got 15 by 15 because the 15 mark was cancelled. So you see, right? So I feel like the threshold, if this wasn't happened, it would have been around 116, yeah, 117. Say yes, so yeah. Sir, how do you get to know that you got a distinction? Nahi. So after the result comes up, uske 3-4 months baad, all the papers are rechecked, and jiske highest marks hote hain in a country, in a region, in the world, the Cambridge British Council sends an email to your school and it specifies that, okay, this student got a distinction. Then you are invited to the British Council ceremony. You go there, it's like somewhere like a 5-star hotel or something. फिर बड़ा on shon scene होता है, खाना शाना होता है, उनके ऊपर good scene हो जाता है. There was something wrong with this question. Yeah, so this 15 marker was removed because the question said to create a function with 3 parameters. Okay, 3 parameters. But your syllabus specifies that you need to have 2 parameters. Guys, बता तो दिए ना कि I do not know how many marks I had because back then they did not tell us our marks. So yeah, so because it has 3 parameters, is wajah se. Sir, what was your reaction? That's a really good question. So I remember I was sitting down and out of nowhere a message pops up on my screen. It was like 7:20 p.m. and it was from my computer science teacher. And the message first line was like, "Dear IGCSE/O level teachers." And I was like, okay, I'm in AS level. Why will I be getting a message for an O levels point of view, right? But the thing was, the moment I gave my paper, I was predicting that I'm gonna get a distinction, inshallah, because I knew everybody was crying about the paper. Everybody was like, okay, we were unable to do it even somewhat good, but I knew I aced it. Okay, I was the only person in the hall, not the only, maybe one other was two, but like I was the first one to ask for an extra sheet, and like literally I was like extra sheet, and the entire hall looked onto me just like this. That okay, man, what the hell? Who is this crazy man? What is he trying to do? So yeah, I was sort of predicting कि आ जाएगी inshallah, and then the same happened. Alhamdulillah, the moment I got a distinction, I saw the message and I was like, oh, and फिर काफी बस that was crazy moment. Like literally उस रात मुझे नींद नहीं आ रही थी खुशी से. Oh, that was crazy. My mother started crying. But yeah. So do you expect 145? I guess it was more than 145. I do remember I made one mistake. So it cannot be 150. It has to be 149 or below. I'm not sure how much I got in the 15 marker. But what I feel like is most probably it was 148. 148. Yeah. So 148 out of 150. 148. So take one box to show which statement is correct about writing computer programs in a high level language. Mnemonics are used. Nah, that's assembly. Computer program is harder to debug than a low. Nah, it's easier. The computer program is machine independent. Yes, it is machine independent. The hardware of the software can be directly manipulated. No, you cannot directly manipulate it. That's something only low level languages can do. Sir, I'm 13 years old. Were you also 13? Nah, man, I was 16. I was 16. Sir, will you stream for pseudocode? Yes, I will. Bro, aura farming ये हुई थी main because I was the first ever from my school to get a subject distinction. So the next day I had my mock exam. I went in and the whole class, like I went into the exam hall, okay, and then I sat down and then the teachers came in and they asked the entire hall to clap for me. So it was like a very aura farming moment back then. And then guess what? I went to the distinction ceremony and the person who was giving the certificate, he was Aga Khan University's dean. So I was like, okay, man, let me just go on the stage and talk to him. Yaar, kya random bus certificate lekar baithna hai yaar. Like, why do average stuff, right? You gotta do some unique stuff. I went on to the stage and I was like, okay, bro, aapki speech kafi maze ki thi. It was like very fun, blah blah. And guess what? He on the stage told me, you should come to Aga Khan. And I was like, no, man, I'm not a medical student. I might be rather preferring US or something of that sort. But yeah, good question ho gaya tha. Yes, when's your birthday? It's the 16th of September. कोई नहीं तो अभी डिस्टिंक्शन अगर ना आई तो आगे आ सकती है इंशाल्लाह. किसने रोका है ब्रो? यू कैन गेट इट इन AS, you can get it in A2. I was predicting a distinction in my O2. I was very much predicting it. Then I did not get it. A girl from our school did get it. It was in some other subject, but that distinction when she got it, I was like, okay, yaar, I wanted it so badly, but I did not get it. But guess what? I did not give up. I was like, ab dekhna, I'm gonna cook it. I'm gonna cook it. I had cooked it that year. Alhamdulillah, I got a distinction the next year, right? So ho gaya tha. Sir, head boys, let's see that bane the aap. I was the president for the MUN society. I was the president for the robotics society 1 year. I was the deputy head boy too. So yeah, तीनों बन चुका हूँ. Student council में I was काफी involved, very involved. So if the question mentions one disadvantage and the marks for the question are 2, will you write one disadvantage or 2? One disadvantage means explain करना. So like you need to write the point plus the explanation. Mashallah बोल दो guys, mashallah बोल दो. Should we do past papers instead of topics? There are no topics. Yeah, we do past papers. सही है. Alright, let's move on. So part B now says that a programmer uses a compiler to translate the computer program. Describe how does a compiler work. So a compiler translates the whole program in one go. How many days did you take, sir? How many days did I take? Sir, why didn't you get admission in Harvard? अच्छा question है. जब आप लोग apply करोगे समझ जाओगे. But you're proud now I was from school. They rejected me. Low-key crazy scene. Good old days. Good old days. But yeah. So what does a compiler do? So it translates a high-level language into machine code and translates all the code before it is executed, and it creates an executable file. Easy. So yes, you're gonna say it translates high-level programming language into machine code. Point number 1. What do we call it? Translates everything in one go. So you can say it translates all the code before it is executed. It translates all the code before it is executed. And finally, an executable file is created. An executable file is generated at the end. Generated. Describe how the compiler reports errors. So it basically reports the errors by creating file or error report after trying to compile everything, which displays all the errors. So I'm going to say it creates an error report after trying to compile. It creates an error report after trying to compile. Which includes all the errors. Clear cut. हाँ माशाल्लाह कह दो guys, माशाल्लाह कह दो. माशाल्लाह कह दो. So part C, the program नहीं, ये जो student council का था, that wasn't in 1 year, so like it was alternate years. So I was head boy during O levels, deputy head boy during O levels. Then I was the student, what do we call it, the STEM society president, because I sort of became the president in AS. That was a low-key crazy stuff, but yeah. And then I became the MUN society president in A2. Low-key conducted one of the best MUNs my city has ever seen. MashaAllah, alhamdulillah. So the programmer uses an IDE to create a computer. One function of the IDE is that it has a built-in compiler. Give 3 others. So ये तो कर लिया. Let's move on. Then it says, this is a good question, last question, then we're going to end it up. A programmer uses a low-level language to write a computer program for a vending machine. Describe what is meant by a low-level language. So a low-level language is basically that type of language which basically is close to the language processed by computers. It has mnemonics and example is assembly language. So it is close. Oh, kya ho gaya? So it is. इंशाल्लाह आप यूनी में भी टॉप करेंगे. यूनी में हालात काफ़ी कुकड है एज ऑफ नाउ. इट इज़ क्लोज टू द लैंग्वेज प्रोसेस बाय द कंप्यूटर because I'm really busy doing other stuff, so I have like a lot of other extracurricular stuff जो कि you can see like teaching and all, so it's the same. How many days did you take CS? क्या मतलब how many days did you take CS? I do not get the question. Huzaifa, that would have been great. किसी MUN में आना. Come to Lumen, guys. I'm in the host team for Lumen. Come to Lumen. I hope so, inshallah. I'm your chair for next year, so Anna, we're gonna be fun, okay? So it is close to the language processed by the computers. And it uses mnemonics. And then you can say that it can directly access, or perhaps because it says what is meant, to meant में आपने direct accessible वाला नहीं, यहाँ पे आपने सिर्फ बताना है. So you can say an example could be assembly language. Sir, why LUMS? Because long story. There is HTML structure and presentation in the syllabus. No, it's no longer in the syllabus. Sir, when is the MUN? It usually happens in December. So you can follow Lumen Society on Instagram. Okay, try to follow Lumen Society, and you are gonna get to know kab ho raha hai aagla. Sahi hai? So the next question says, give 2 reasons why the programmer would choose to write the computer program in a low level. So definitely you go with low level because it can allow you to firstly access the hardware. So it gives you the opportunity to directly access the hardware. So then you can say also it's way more efficient memory wise. You can also say that it is way more faster to be executed. So all those points are perfectly fine. Okay, so I can say, or perhaps the best point is it can use specialized hardware. This is something your high level language can never do. It can use specialized hardware. Which is point number 1. And then the second point could be that you can directly manipulate the hardware, or like the program will be performed efficiently. Sir, is there any difference in the syllabus compared to 2023? No. Or like you can say program will be performed efficiently. A better point rather than stating this would be that you can say it could be quicker to execute. वो better होगा. Say so rather than saying this, you can say quicker to execute, as stated by one of you here. Quicker to execute. But you cannot write other points too, like it. You can say that program will be more memory efficient and all that stuff. Say. Sir, I knowing is knowing all of the utilities and decide like know what it means and stuff. You should know at least small description. That if a question comes up to explain one type of utility software, तो आपको पता हो. Sir, how many days did you take? Sir, CS. I don't know what this question means. Like कितना time मैंने पढ़ा है, so I am studying it from O1. Sir, is the working of utility software in our syllabus? Not fully, but yes, it is slightly. We just did a question. Okay. Sir, assembly language part of low level? Yep, it is. Yes, you can also talk about the fact that it does not need a compiler. No, I did not get 100% scholarship at LUMS. So what is meant by high level language? I'm just going to say it on your own. So it basically uses English like statements and it converts like a code which needs to be converted into your normal machine code. You use a translator to do that. It is also machine independent, which means that it is portable. By the point that it is portable, this means that if one person uses Python on MacBook, the same code for Python will be used on Windows computer too. But if you're using machine code, that is not machine independent, that is machine dependent. So your low level language is machine dependent, which means that if I'm coding on low level language on a MacBook, that coding is different from that done on Windows. Okay. And what's assembly language? Assembly language is the third type of, it's the second type of low level language, which basically which is pretty much similar to low level language, the way computer generally works, but it uses mnemonics. So I can say that if you want to add two numbers, you don't write code, but you do something like ADD 1 2 stuff like that. But now this isn't in your syllabus, but you should know that it uses mnemonics. What are the mnemonics? You're going to study that in AS inshallah, but it uses mnemonics, and of course at the same time your what do we call it, assembly language basically uses an assembler to translate the assembly language then into binary, which is 0 1 0 1 0. High level language is written in HTML? No. High level language is written in examples like Python, Java, C++, C Sharp, all that stuff. Sir, what is machine language? Machine language refers to your the code, the binary code. It's not machine language, it's machine code. Okay, so it's the one which your computer understands, zeros and ones. So how do you gain the XP? So the more you talk, the more your XP would be. So like at this point, we have Ahmed, Riaz, Huzaifa, Khan, and Reaper, who are the top 3 question askers or maybe talkers in this stream at this point. But there you go, guys. That marks the end of our class for today. Okay. So is LUMS good? Yeah, it is good. It is good. It's really good. Sir, final exam you perform, what happening? Satisfied? जो अभी हो रहे हैं उनके तो यार अभी थोड़े हालात खराब है, दुआ करना रिकवरी हो जाए, थोड़ा कुक टू. Sir, has every input output devices that भाई इतने सवाल जो आज हमने शुरू में किए they were after the 2023 sets. There was one question someone was asking. Sir, a single line of code can perform multiple tasks in high level language. Yes, वो भी valid point. You can write that too. Takes less memory in low level. लिख सकते हैं, लिख सकते हो. Sir, will you make after getting sir main topics for paper number 1 entire course. Sir, can machine code be considered as low level? Yes. Sir, what college did you study? किधर गया? Just a second. So, what college did you study in? I studied in Roots. So, what age did you take IGCSE? So I was 13 when I started with IGCSE, ended it with 16. Sir, is LUMS good for CS? Really good. So, no problem. Right, that's it for today, guys. अच्छे खासे सवालात हो गए. I had a 1460 super score. I had a super score of 1460. SAT was a bit lower for me, but yeah. So ये गुजारा हो गया था. 1460 was my super score, which was then sent to the US unis and all that stuff. So where was that one kiddo who wanted me to solve a paper question? What about fast? Fast is also good. It does not depend. Okay, LUMS has this good point that you're gonna have a very crazy network. Okay, so you're gonna see, sir, someone is behind you. No one is behind me. No one is behind me. But yeah, हाँ तो रियलिस्टिक भाई कब से बोल रहा हूँ तो बोल रहा हूँ क्वेश्चन भेजो 10 दफा बोल दिया मैंने. द रिकॉर्डिंग विल बी अवेलेबल. सही है. So the thing is, LUMS may, despite getting a distinction, despite getting straight A's, I did not get a scholarship. And we have people who have scholarships. We have people who have like 9, 9, 10, 10 A stars, okay? 11, 11 A stars. We have one student who has 5 A star in A levels, the other having 6 5 A stars, 6 A level subjects, 6 A's and A stars. So, you know, Loki, it's very competitive up here, very, very competitive. Average start हो गई 1400 plus 1500 1400 की range में. So you can see, right? For that reason, if you come up here, the competition is really tough and you are challenged with some of the most difficult stuff. So that things. Sir, as your roommate being kidnapped, वो चला गया. Sir, what should I do about the question related to draw? जो मेरी PDF है वो देख लो and understand हम draw कैसे करते हैं. Sir, can I write in points? No, you should not write in points. You should write in full form. Sir, which routes? Aptabad, Pine Campus, Millennium, Roots Millennium. Okay, let's do this one question. जो कि realistic by is crazy after winter 23 question paper 11, which is the question number 2 part E. I'm going to solve this one question for him. अल्लाह करे सवाल कोई सवाल लेवल का हुआ तो question 2 part E. Okay, so this is the question. It's on my website. Sir, 3 years के past papers are enough? Yes, enough. So it says it's a 4-marker question, and it says that when a customer is leaving the car park, they arrive at a barrier. The customer needs to basically insert their ticket into a system at the barrier. The system reads the ticket number, then checks whether the parking cost has been paid for the car. The barrier is raised if it has been paid. The system uses a microprocessor. How is a microprocessor used in this? So this is a relatively very easy question, and this is the type of question you might even get अगर आप what do we call it उसकी बात करें census की भी similarly question आते हैं. सही है. So the way it works is that the ticket number is basically compared with the data which is in the backend. So like with the store data, with the database data. So we have a database which has all the ticket numbers who have paid them, say who have paid it. So we're gonna check the ticket number with the database to see yaar jo paid list hai, does it have that number or not. If the data matches, we're gonna say that okay, this person has paid, so you send a signal to raise the barrier. If not, then you keep the barrier down. Simple. So we're gonna say compares the ticket number with the stored data in a database, with the stored data in the database. So compares the ticket number with the stored data in the database, which has a list of all the tickets who have paid, which has a list of all the tickets which have paid. We will not be doing Feb March 26 paper. It's not officially announced, released, okay, by Cambridge. So it's illegal to solve it, which has a list of all the tickets who have paid. If the ticket number matches, then a signal is sent to raise the barrier. If not matched, this means the user has not paid, or this means the person has not paid, and therefore it will not lift the barrier. Shayan, you are very late. We are just ending it up. But there you go. That's it. Okay. Sir, is advantage and disadvantage भाई कितनी दफा ये पूछ लिया guys. Yes, it is in the syllabus. सब कुछ पता होना चाहिए, यूजेस पता होनी चाहिए, एडवांटेजेस डिसएडवांटेजेस होते क्या है, कहाँ यूज होते हैं, सब पता होना चाहिए, एक्सेप्ट फॉर द फैक्ट कि काम करता कैसे, उसको छोड़ के सब पता होना चाहिए. But this is it for today, everybody. I hope you guys got the chance to learn and that the question were clear. By the way, this question was clear. What do we call it? पूछा किसने था? Realistic भाई. I hope it's now clear. And my advice would be that if anybody of you does not get a question, don't just give up. Okay, just go and first check the marking scheme. मार्किंग स्कीम खुद देखो, आपको आइडिया हो जाए कि लिखना क्या, फिर आपको अच्छे हद तक हो जाएगा. सही है. Alright, that's it for today, everybody. Take care. See you guys inshallah tomorrow again 4 p.m. We're gonna do chapter number 6 whole revision. Then we're gonna do chapter 5 topicals. We're gonna do chapter 6 topicals. क्या याद रखोगे अपने फाइनल्स को स्टेक पे करके. बट या I hope the classes help. So inshallah everyone is gonna do great. Don't waste your time. Do as much questions as possible, as many topicals as possible. The more you do, the better you're going to perform, and itna hi aapka behtar scene hoga. Sahi hai. So that's it for today. Take care, everybody. See you guys inshallah tomorrow. Allah Hafiz.